Opening. Cold open. I stepped off the plane at Columbus International after 11 years away, my carry-on containing more legal documents than clothes. The Ohio air hit me like a memory I'd been trying to forget, thick, humid, familiar. My mother opened the door of 1247 Maple Street with tears in her eyes and arms that reached for me like I was still her little girl. But before I could even set down my bag, her new husband greeted me with his fist. "Welcome home." Marcus Shaw slurred bourbon heavy on his breath. The sting across my face wasn't what hurt most. It was watching my mother look away, pretending not to notice. Again, they called me cold, calculating, ungrateful. Maybe they were right, but I had something they didn't expect: the original deed papers they thought were lost forever, a very good lawyer on speed dial, and my father's voice in my head reminding me that Bennetts don't back down from a fight. My name is Sarah Bennett, and I was about to teach Marcus Shaw the most expensive lesson of his life. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon while I was reviewing quarterly reports in my Manhattan office. 34 floors above the chaos of Midtown, surrounded by glass and steel, and the career I'd built from nothing. "Bennett," I answered, eyes still on the spreadsheet. "Sarah, dear, it's Grandma Eleanor." I straightened immediately. My grandmother never called during business hours, never called my work line. The knot in my stomach formed before she spoke again. "Your grandfather passed away this morning," she said, her voice paper-thin but steady. "The memorial is Saturday. You need to come home." I almost said no, would have if she hadn't added in that particular tone she used when she knew more than she was saying. "You need to see this with your own eyes, sweetheart. And bring those papers from the safe deposit box, the ones from 2009. My hand froze on the mouse. The papers from 2009. The co-signing documents for the house after Dad died. The ones I'd filed away and tried to forget, just like everything else about Ohio. "Sarah," Grandma's voice pulled me back. "Promise me you'll come. Promise me you'll bring those papers." "I promise, Grandma." "And Sarah, be careful around Marcus. Your mother, she's not herself these days." The line went dead before I could ask what she meant. I sat there for a long moment looking out at the New York skyline. 11 years. 11 years since I'd set foot in my hometown. 11 years since I'd packed everything I owned into 2 duffel bags and a backpack, caught a bus to basic training, and promised myself I'd never look back. I'd kept that promise. Through 4 years in the Army, through college paid for by the GI Bill, through climbing the corporate ladder at one of Manhattan's most prestigious financial firms. I'd built a life that had nothing to do with Ohio, nothing to do with the ghost of my father, or the shell of a mother who'd replaced me with a stranger 8 months after we buried Dad. But now Grandpa was gone, and Grandma Eleanor didn't ask for things lightly. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out the key to my safe deposit box. Then I pulled up my assistant on the office messenger. "Jenna, clear my calendar through Monday. Family emergency. I need flights to Columbus for tomorrow morning and hotel recommendations." Her response came back in seconds. "On it. I'm so sorry, Sarah. Let me know if you need anything." I stared at my computer screen, but I wasn't seeing the numbers anymore. I was seeing the house on Maple Street, the wraparound porch where Dad had taught me to play chess, the kitchen where Mom used to bake on Sunday mornings, the workshop in the basement where Dad had let me help with his projects even when I was more hindrance than help. I was seeing the home I'd loved and the stranger who'd taken it over. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. "Sarah, I heard you're coming for the service. We have plenty of room. You'll stay with us. No, I miss you. No, I'm sorry for your loss." Just the assumption that I'd stay under her roof, under Marcus's roof. I typed back, "I'll get a hotel. See you Saturday." The response was immediate. "Don't be ridiculous. Family stays with family. Marcus insists." "I bet he does." I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my banking app and transferred $10,000 from savings to checking. Whatever was waiting for me in Ohio, I had a feeling I'd need resources. Then I called the one person in Ohio I still trusted. "Morrison Law Office. How may I direct your call?" "Jonathan Morrison, please. Tell him it's Sarah Bennett." 3 rings, then Sarah. "My God, it's been years. I heard about your grandfather. I'm so sorry." "Thank you, Mr. Morrison." I'd known him my whole life. He'd been my grandfather's best friend, my father's lawyer, and the man who'd helped me understand the legal documents when I co-signed the mortgage at 19. "I need to ask you something. The house on Maple Street. My name is still on the deed, right?" A pause. A long pause. "Sarah, when was the last time you checked the county records?" My stomach dropped. What does that mean? It means you should come to my office when you get into town, before you go to the house, before you see your mother. Mr. Morrison, Saturday morning, 9 a.m., I'll have everything pulled. His voice softened. Sarah, your grandmother called me yesterday. She said you'd be reaching out. We need to talk about some protections your father put in place. Protections I don't think your mother knows about. What kind of protections? The kind that might save your family's home, if we act fast. The flight from LaGuardia to Columbus took 2 hours. 2 hours to undo 11 years of carefully maintained distance. 2 hours to flip through the documents I'd retrieved from my safe deposit box that morning. The papers were exactly as I remembered co-signing agreements from 2009 conditional transfer clauses, my father's cramped handwriting in the margins with notes like, "Read this carefully, and both parties must consent." I'd been 19 years old, fresh out of basic training, when Mom and I sat in Morrison's office trying to figure out how to keep the house after Dad's life insurance ran out. The mortgage was half paid, but Mom's secretary salary couldn't cover it alone. I'd just signed my Army contract steady income, even if it wasn't much. If Sarah co-signs, Morrison had explained, the bank will restructure the loan, lower payments longer term. But Sarah, you need to understand this makes you an owner. Equal say in any decisions about the property. Mom had cried with relief. I'd signed without hesitation. Dad had built that house with his own hands. I wasn't going to let the bank take it. Now, sitting in seat 14C with a ginger ale, I wasn't drinking. I wondered what had changed. What had Marcus done? The woman next to me noticed my white knuckles on the armrest. Nervous flyer. Something like that. I rented a car at the airport, a practical Honda that felt nothing like the town cars I was used to in Manhattan. Muscle memory guided me through familiar streets, past the high school where I'd graduated valedictorian, past the diner where Dad used to take me for pancakes on Saturday mornings, past the recruiting office where I'd signed my life over to Uncle Sam because staying in this town felt like drowning. Everything looked smaller than I remembered. The houses, the trees, even the dreams that had seemed so big when I was 18. And then I was there. 1247 Maple Street. I parked across the street and just sat for a moment studying the place where I'd grown up. The garden my father had planted was gone, replaced with gravel and a rusted pickup truck on blocks. The basketball hoop he'd installed for my 13th birthday had vanished. Even the old oak tree looked different, half its branches missing, probably cut down to make room for the massive, poorly constructed garage addition that jutted out like a tumor on the side of the house. The mailbox read Shaw, now not Bennett. My mother had taken Marcus's name when they married 3 years ago. She'd sent me an invitation to the wedding, a cheap card with generic text and a photo of her and Marcus that looked like it had been taken at a bar. I'd sent my regrets and a check for $200. She'd cashed it without a thank you. I grabbed my bag and crossed the street. The porch steps creaked under my weight. Dad would have fixed those immediately. He'd built these steps himself, made sure every board was solid, every nail secure. The front door opened before I could knock. Sarah. My mother looked older. So much older than 58 should look. Grayer, thinner, smaller. Her eyes were puffy, and not just from crying about Grandpa. There was something else there, something haunted. She pulled me into a hug that felt like an obligation, not affection. "You're so thin," she said, stepping back. "Don't they feed you in New York?" "Hello, Mom." Her smile faltered. "Well, come in. Marcus is in the living room." The house smelled different. Cigarettes and something else, neglect maybe. The hardwood floors my father had refinished by hand were scuffed and dull. Family photos that once lined the hallway had been replaced with Marcus's hunting trophies and fishing pictures. "Look who finally decided to grace us with her presence." Marcus Shaw's voice boomed from the living room before I even saw him. When I rounded the corner, he was exactly where I expected in my father's leather recliner, the one Dad had saved for 2 years to buy, except it had been reupholstered in hideous camouflage fabric. Marcus didn't get up, didn't even set down his beer. "The prodigal daughter returns," he said, that permanent sneer stretching his face. Marcus Shaw was exactly what you'd expect from a man who preyed on widows' mid-50s beer-gut perpetual 5 o'clock shadow and eyes that measured everything for what it could give him. He wore a stained T-shirt that proclaimed him world's best grandpa, though he had no grandchildren. The irony wasn't lost on me. "Marcus," I acknowledged with a nod. "That's it, no good to see you. No thanks for taking care of my mother." He took a long swig from his beer, his eyes never leaving me. Challenging, measuring. Sarah's tired from her flight. Mom fluttered between us like a nervous bird. Let me show you to your room, honey. My room. Right. What used to be my bedroom, the room where I'd studied for the SATs, where I'd cried over my first breakup, where I'd made the decision to join the army, had been turned into a storage closet. Boxes labeled Marcus's bowling trophies and hunting gear were stacked against the walls. A pull-out couch had been wedged between them. Where's my furniture? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Oh, well, Rick needed an office for his business, and you haven't been home in so long. We didn't think... Mom trailed off. This is fine, isn't it? You're only staying a few nights? I thought of my apartment in Manhattan. My sanctuary with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park, my California king bed, my walk-in closet organized by color and season. I'll get a hotel. Don't be ridiculous. Mom's hand flew to her throat. Family stays with family. What would people think? What would people think? My mother's eternal concern. Fine, I need to use the bathroom. Even the bathroom had changed. Marcus's razors cluttered the sink. His prescription bottles lined the medicine cabinet, Percocet, Vicodin, Xanax, a winning combination. The shower curtain featured Confederate flags. In my childhood bathroom, in the house my father, who'd served 2 tours in Iraq, had bought with his veteran's loan. I locked the door and pulled out my phone. Opened the encrypted folder where I'd uploaded all my documents that morning. Everything was there, the original purchase agreement from 1997, my co-signing papers from 2009, the conditional transfer clause, the military service provision. Most importantly, my name was still on those papers. Had been all along. Downstairs, I could hear Marcus's voice getting louder. Ungrateful little bitch walks in here like she owns the place, hasn't contributed a dime in 11 years. I studied my reflection in the mirror. Looked at the woman I'd become. Expensive haircut, designer suit, confidence built from conquering Manhattan boardrooms. Marcus Shaw had no idea what he'd started. I smiled at my reflection. Let's go to work, I whispered. The memorial service for my grandfather was scheduled for 10 a.m. at Riverside Funeral Home. I woke at 6:30 on the pull-out couch, my back aching from springs that poked through the thin mattress. I could hear Marcus snoring down the hall in the master bedroom, my parents' bedroom, where Mom and Dad had slept for 18 years. I got ready quietly, using the concealer I'd thankfully packed to cover the circles under my eyes. My black suit was wrinkled from the carry-on, but it would do. I pinned Dad's West Point pin to my lapel, the one thing of his I'd managed to take when I left. Mom was already in the kitchen trying to look busy with a coffee pot that clearly wasn't working right. Coffee, she offered. No, thank you. Sarah, about last night. We should leave soon. Don't want to be late. She nodded, wringing her hands. She'd aged so much in 3 years. Or maybe I'd just forgotten what she looked like without the filter of phone calls and obligatory holiday texts. Marcus appeared in the doorway looking worse for wear. He grabbed orange juice from the fridge, added a generous splash of vodka. It was 7:30 in the morning. What's all the noise? He muttered. Getting ready for Dad's memorial, Mom said softly. Right, the old man's dead party. He took a long drink. Count me out. Game's on. Mom's face crumbled slightly. But Marcus, you said... I said I'd think about it. I thought about it. Not going. He shuffled back toward the living room. Have fun playing sad. I watched my mother shrink into herself, becoming smaller with each word. This was her life now. Her choice. We should go, I said. The drive to the funeral home was silent. Mom kept her hands folded in her lap, twisting her wedding ring, a cheap silver band that had replaced the gold one Dad had given her. He's not usually like that, she said finally as we pulled into the parking lot. Like what? So gruff. He's under a lot of stress. Work has been slow, and the bills for the house you own, I interrupted. The house Dad left to you. Her face went pale. It's more complicated than that. Actually, it's not. I pulled up the county property records on my phone, showed her the screen. Did you know the house was transferred to joint ownership with Marcus last year? We got married. It made sense. Did you read what you signed? Marcus handled all that. He said it was just paperwork. Of course he did. Mom, did he also handle selling Dad's tools, his coin collection, Grandma's jewelry that was supposed to come to me? Tears slipped down her cheeks, but she didn't answer. That's what I thought. We sat in the parking lot watching other families arrive. Normal families. Functional families. Families where mothers protected daughters instead of enabling abusers. I should tell you, I said finally, I'm meeting with Grandpa's lawyer after the service. Her head snapped up. Why? To discuss my options regarding Dad's estate, specifically the house. Sarah, no. Please, it's all we have. It's all Marcus. You had a daughter. You had a family home full of memories. You had Dad's legacy. I looked at her directly. You chose Marcus instead. You can't just, actually I can. My name is still on several documents that give me more rights than you think. I opened the car door, then leaned back in. Coming, or should I tell everyone you're not feeling well? She followed me into the funeral home, silent and shaken. Good. It was time she understood what it felt like to have your world shifted without your consent. The memorial service was beautiful. Grandpa would have loved it, simple, dignified, full of people whose lives he'd touched. Veterans in dress uniform, neighbors he'd helped over 50 years, former clients whose legal problems he'd solved. I gave a brief eulogy about the man who'd taught me to read contracts before I signed them, who'd said, Sarah, always keep copies, always know your rights. I saw Grandma Eleanor in the front row nodding at me, approving. After the service during the reception, a distinguished man in his 60s approached me, salt and pepper hair, expensive suit eyes that had seen too many courtrooms. Sarah Bennett, yes, Jonathan Morrison. Your grandmother said you might need my services. I handed him my phone, showing him the photos I'd taken that morning. Marcus passed out drunk at 3 a.m., the prescription bottles, the deteriorating house, the property records. His expression darkened as he scrolled. How fast can you move on this? I asked quietly. How fast do you need? Marcus is planning something. I can feel it. And my mother? I glanced across the room where Mom stood with her sister looking small and lost. She won't protect herself. Morrison pulled out his business card, wrote something on the back. This is my cell. Call me tonight after 7. We'll need to discuss some things your father put in place that you don't know about. What kind of things? He smiled slightly. The kind that suggest your father was a better judge of character than your mother. He saw this coming, Sarah. Not Marcus specifically, but someone like him, and he made sure you'd have options. I don't understand. You will, tonight. He handed me the card. And Sarah, don't go back to that house alone. Whatever you do, don't be alone with Marcus. A chill ran down my spine. Why? Because desperate men do desperate things. And your presence here with lawyers, with family, with witnesses, you've just made him very desperate. I should have listened to Morrison. I drove Mom home around 4 p.m. Marcus's truck was gone off to his usual spot, Mom said, which I assumed meant the VFW bar where he pretended to be a veteran and drank away whatever money Mom had left. I'm going to lie down, Mom said as soon as we got inside. She looked exhausted, wrung out from emotion and family, and having to face the reality that her father was gone. I'll be in my room, I said. I have some work calls to make. I spent 2 hours on my laptop reading through every document Morrison had sent. The picture they painted was worse than I'd imagined. Marcus Shaw had been systematically draining my mother's accounts for 3 years. The mortgage, which should have been almost paid off, had been refinanced twice. There was a home equity loan I knew Mom hadn't authorized. Credit cards in her name maxed out at $40,000. And the spending patterns, casinos, sports betting sites, online poker. Marcus Shaw was a gambler, and he'd bet away my mother's future. I was so absorbed in the documents that I didn't hear his truck pull up at 10:15 p.m., didn't hear him stumble through the front door, only heard him when he was already at the top of the stairs. Where the hell have you been? I looked up from my laptop. Marcus swayed in the doorway of my makeshift bedroom, bourbon fumes rolling off him in waves. I texted Mom. She knew I'd be working late. I don't give a damn what you told her. He moved closer, and I instinctively stood, putting the pull-out couch between us. When I say 10 o'clock, I mean 10 o'clock. Marcus, you're drunk. Go to bed. Don't tell me what to do in my own house. Actually, I kept my voice level. This is my house, too. Check the deed. His face went purple. That paperwork don't mean shit. You abandoned your mother. This house is mine. Is that what you tell yourself? You think you're better than us, don't you? He stumbled forward, catching himself on the doorframe. With your fancy job and your New York attitude, coming back here judging interfering. I'm not interfering. I'm protecting what's mine. Nothing here is yours. His voice exploded loud enough to wake Mom down the hall. I heard her bedroom door open, heard her hesitant footsteps. Marcus, she called. Sarah, what's going on? Go back to bed, Maggie. Marcus growled, his eyes never leaving me. But something had shifted in his expression. Something dangerous. You know what your problem is. He moved around the couch, backing me toward the corner. You think you're so smart, so tough, but you're just a scared little girl playing dress-up. Marcus stepped back. Or what, The slap came fast. Open-handed, but hard enough to snap my head sideways. Not a punch he was too drunk for accuracy, but enough to make my cheek explode with pain. Marcus! Mom's voice from the doorway. But she didn't move. Didn't step between us. Just stood there frozen. Marcus released my arm, which I hadn't even realized he'd grabbed. Satisfaction spread across his flushed face. You're nothing special, girl. Just another ungrateful brat who abandoned her family. This isn't your home anymore. I touched my cheek, already feeling it swell. Tasted blood from where my teeth had cut the inside of my mouth. But I didn't cry. Didn't scream. Didn't give him the satisfaction. Instead, I looked him dead in the eye and said, You just made a very expensive mistake. Then I looked at my mother still standing in the doorway, still not moving. I'll be at the Hampton Inn if you need me. I packed my bag in 3 minutes, grabbed my laptop, my documents, my phone. On my way out, I stopped in the bathroom and took careful photos of my face from multiple angles, the swelling, the cut, the handprint already forming. Then I opened the legal app Morrison had recommended and created a new incident report. Time-stamped, detailed, documented. My phone buzzed as I got in my rental car. A text from Mom. Please don't go. We can talk about this in the morning. I didn't respond. Instead, I texted Morrison. Need emergency consultation. He assaulted me. I have photos. His response came back in seconds. Hampton Inn lobby. 20 minutes. I drove away from 1247 Maple Street without looking back. In my rearview mirror, I could see the house growing smaller. The house my father built, the house my mother had given away to a predator, the house I was going to take back. Marcus Shaw thought he'd won by driving me away. He didn't realize he'd just armed me with everything I needed to destroy him. The war had begun, and I'd learned from the best, a military man who'd taught me that sometimes the best offense is patience planning and perfectly placed precision strikes. Marcus Shaw had thrown the first punch. I was about to show him what a real fight looked like. Jonathan Morrison was waiting in the Hampton Inn lobby when I arrived at 11:30 p.m., a leather briefcase at his feet and 2 cups of coffee on the table beside him. Let me see, he said without preamble. I sat down and turned my face toward the light. The swelling had gotten worse during the drive. My left cheek was puffy, the cut on my lip still bleeding slightly. Morrison's jaw tightened. He pulled out his phone and took his own set of photos, clinical and methodical. Open your mouth. Tongue to the side. Good. Any dizziness, nausea, blurred vision. No. He slapped me, didn't punch me. He was too drunk for accuracy. Doesn't matter. This is assault, battery, and given that he did it to prevent you from exercising your legal rights to the property, we might even argue intimidation. He sat back, pulling a yellow legal pad from his briefcase. Tell me everything. From the beginning. I did. The phone call from Grandma Eleanor, the condition of the house, the missing heirlooms, Marcus is drinking his prescription drug cocktail, the vodka in his morning orange juice, Mom's fearful eyes, the spreadsheet I'd found on his laptop listing Dad's belongings with price tags. Morrison's pen never stopped moving. When I finished, he looked up. Sarah, what I'm about to tell you stays between us until we're ready to move. Understand? Yes. Your father came to see me 3 months before his last deployment. He was worried about what would happen if he didn't come home. Morrison pulled a file from his briefcase, thick worn, labeled, Bennett, Contingency. He'd been having problems with your mother. They'd gone to counseling. Things were better, but he wanted insurance. Insurance against her making impulsive decisions if he died. He loved her, but he knew she was afraid of being alone, afraid enough to make bad choices. Morrison opened the file. When you co-signed that mortgage in 2009, there were clauses your mother never read. Clauses James specifically requested. He slid a document across the table. I recognized my signature at the bottom, younger, less confident 19-year-old me who just wanted to help Mom keep the house. Paragraph 7, Morrison pointed. The Military Service Protection Clause. I read it carefully. In the event that any co-senior is serving on active military duty at the time of property transfer, modification, or sale, said co-senior's written consent must be obtained via notarized signature. Verbal consent, proxy consent, or implied consent shall be deemed invalid for the duration of active service, plus a period of 5 years following honorable discharge. I looked up. I served from 2009 to 2013. That means any changes to the property ownership made before 2018 required your direct notarized consent. Morrison pulled out another document. Marcus had your mother sign joint ownership papers in 2022. Legal. But he pulled out a third document. He also filed a quit-claim deed in 2017, attempting to remove you from the title entirely. My breath caught. While I was still protected. Exactly, which means that quit-claim deed is void. Legally, Sarah, you still own 50% of that house. Marcus owns nothing. Your mother owns the other 50%. The coffee Morrison had ordered sat cooling, forgotten. My mind was racing through implications, possibilities, strategies. He doesn't know, I said slowly. Marcus has no idea the 2017 filing was invalid. I doubt he even read the co-signing agreement. Men like Marcus Shaw see paperwork as an obstacle, not a safeguard. He probably paid some cheap online service to file the quit-claim, thought he'd covered his bases. Morrison leaned forward. But here's where it gets interesting. Your father also included a poison pill provision. A what? Paragraph 12. If any party attempts to fraudulently transfer or encumber the property, the other party has the right to assume full ownership at fair market value, with payment terms determined by the court. I read paragraph 12 3 times, my heart pounding. This means if we can prove Marcus committed fraud, forged signatures, falsified documents, anything, you have the legal right to buy out your mother's share at a court-determined price. Essentially, you could take full ownership of the house. But Mom would retain life estate rights. She could live there until she dies, but couldn't sell, transfer, or encumber the property. She'd be protected from future predators. Morrison closed the file. Your father thought of everything, Sarah. He built a fortress around that house. We just need to prove Marcus is attacking it. I thought of the spreadsheet on Marcus's laptop, the bank statements showing gambling losses, the forged home equity loan. I can prove it, I said. But I need to get back into that house. I need access to his computer, his files, his paper trail. Absolutely not. He just assaulted you. You go back there, you're in danger. Then what do you suggest? Morrison smiled for the first time that night. We let the system work for us. Tomorrow morning, we file for an emergency protective order. The judge will grant it. We have photos, documentation, witnesses. That protective order will require Marcus to stay away from you, which means he'll be barred from the house while you're there. He'll never leave voluntarily. He won't have a choice. The sheriff will escort him out. Morrison pulled out his phone. I'm calling my investigator. Former FBI, specializes in financial crimes. With your permission, she'll go through every document in that house with a fine-tooth comb. Do it. This will get expensive, Sarah. Court fees, investigator costs, potential litigation. We could be looking at $50,000 to $70,000. I thought of my savings account. The years of living modestly despite my salary, investing carefully, building a safety net. I can afford it. And if Marcus lawyers up, if this goes to trial, then it goes to trial. I met his eyes. Mr. Morrison, that house is all I have left of my father. It's the only thing Marcus hasn't sold or destroyed. I don't care what it costs. I want it back. He nodded slowly. Your father would be proud. He always said you had steel in your spine. He also said Bennett's don't start fights. I touched my swollen cheek. But we sure as hell finish them. Friday morning, 9 a.m. sharp, we stood before Judge Catherine Brennan in her chambers. Morrison had pulled strings to get the emergency hearing called in favors from 30 years of practice in this courthouse. Judge Brennan was in her late 50s, steel gray hair pulled back in a no-nonsense bun, reading glasses perched on her nose as she reviewed our filing. Ms. Bennett, she said without looking up, these are serious allegations. Assault, battery, financial exploitation, fraudulent property transfer. Every claim is documented, Your Honor. Morrison slid a 3-inch binder across her desk. Photographs of injuries sustained last night. Medical report from the ER visit at midnight. Bank records showing unauthorized withdrawals. Property records showing the invalid quit-claim deed. Witness statements from neighbors regarding Mr. Shaw's volatile behavior. I'd spent 3 hours in the ER after Morrison and I finished talking. The doctor had been thorough, documenting every injury, noting the pattern consistent with an open-handed slap photographing from multiple angles. I had a mild concussion, a split lip requiring 2 stitches, and spectacular bruising. The judge flipped through the binder, her expression darkening with each page. Ms. Bennett, did you report this assault to the police? Yes, Your Honor. I filed a report at 11:45 p.m. Officer Rodriguez took my statement. And your mother witnessed this? Yes, Your Honor. She was standing in the doorway. Did she intervene? I hesitated. No, Your Honor. Judge Brennan looked at me over her reading glasses. Why do you think that is? I believe my mother is also a victim of Mr. Shaw's abuse. Emotional, financial, possibly physical. She's been isolated from family and friends. She's terrified of being alone. And she's been conditioned to prioritize his needs over everyone else's, including her own daughter's safety. The judge nodded slowly. Mr. Morrison, what are you seeking? Emergency protective order requiring Mr. Shaw to maintain a distance of at least 500 feet from Ms. Bennett. Temporary restraining order barring him from the property at 1247 Maple Street. An authorization for Ms. Bennett to enter the property with sheriff escort to secure and document assets. On what grounds can you bar him from his own residence? It's not his residence, Your Honor. Morrison pulled out the co-signing agreement, the Military Service Protection Clause highlighted in yellow. Mr. Shaw has never had legal ownership of the property. He's been residing there by grace of Mrs. Margaret Bennett, who herself holds title jointly with her daughter. The invalid quit-claim deed he filed in 2017 has given him a false sense of ownership. Judge Brennan studied the document carefully. This is unusually sophisticated drafting for a standard co-signing agreement. Colonel James Bennett was an unusually cautious man, Your Honor. He'd served 2 tours overseas. He understood the importance of contingency planning. And he anticipated his widow might be vulnerable to predators, the judge said quietly. Yes, Your Honor. She closed the binder, removed her glasses, looked at me directly. Ms. Bennett, I'm granting the protective order. Mr. Shaw is to maintain 500 feet distance from you at all times. I'm also granting a temporary restraining order for the property valid for 30 days, pending a full hearing. She signed the order with decisive strokes. Sheriff's Department will be notified immediately. They'll escort you to the property to secure your belongings and any relevant documentation. Thank you, Your Honor. However, she fixed me with a stern look, I'm also ordering an evaluation of Mrs. Margaret Bennett. If she's truly a victim of abuse and financial exploitation, she needs protection and support, not just legal maneuvering. Family Services will conduct a home visit within 72 hours. I understand, Your Honor. And Ms. Bennett, your father built protections into these documents, but they only work if you're willing to see this through. Are you prepared for what comes next? The publicity, the family drama, the possibility that your mother might choose Marcus over you. I thought of Mom standing in that doorway watching Marcus hit me, choosing silence. Yes, Your Honor, I'm prepared. We arrived at 1247 Maple Street at 11 a.m. with an escort of 2 sheriff's deputies. Deputy Martinez and Deputy Chen, both young, both professional, both clearly briefed on Marcus Shaw's volatility. Marcus's truck was in the driveway. The door opened before we'd even parked. What the hell is this? Marcus stood on the porch, beer in hand, despite the hour. This is my property. You can't, Mr. Shaw. Deputy Martinez stepped forward, hand resting casually on his belt. We have a court order requiring you to vacate this property for the next 30 days. I need you to step aside and allow Ms. Bennett to enter. Like hell, this is my house. I've lived here 3 years. Sir, you need to see this. Morrison approached with the protective order and restraining order holding them at arm's length. Judge Brennan signed these this morning. You're required to maintain 500 feet distance from Ms. Bennett, and you're temporarily barred from this residence pending investigation. Marcus's face cycled through several shades of red and purple. Investigation of what? Multiple counts of fraud, financial exploitation, and assault. I'd advise you to contact an attorney, Mr. Shaw. You're going to need one. Maggie! Marcus bellowed into the house. "Maggie, get out here!" My mother appeared behind him wearing a bathrobe, though it was almost noon. Her eyes were red-rimmed and puffy. When she saw my bruised face, my split lip, she gasped. "Sarah, Mrs. Bennett," Deputy Chen spoke gently. "We need to come inside. This is a lawful order. If Mr. Shaw doesn't comply voluntarily, we'll have to arrest him for interfering with a court order." "Marcus, please." Mom's voice was barely a whisper. "Just do what they say." "This is bullshit. This is my house. I remodeled it. I fixed it up. You destroyed it," I said quietly, my first words since arriving. "You tore out everything my father built and replaced it with garbage. You sold his belongings for gambling money, and last night you assaulted me to keep me quiet about it. I barely touched you. You're being dramatic. I have a concussion, 2 stitches, and documented evidence from an ER doctor. That's not dramatic, Marcus. That's assault." Deputy Martinez stepped forward. "Mr. Shaw, you have 2 choices. You can leave voluntarily and find somewhere else to stay for 30 days, or I can arrest you right now for violation of a court order. Your choice. 5 seconds. Marcus looked at Mom. "You're just going to let them do this, after everything I've done for you." Mom's hands twisted together, her wedding ring catching the light. For a moment I thought she'd side with him again. Thought she'd beg the deputies to leave, tell them this was all a misunderstanding. But then she looked at my face. Really looked at the damage Marcus had done. "Go to your brother's house," she said softly. "We'll figure this out later. Maggie." "Please, Marcus." "Just go." He slammed his beer bottle on the porch rail, shattering it. Deputy Chen's hand moved to his taser. 30 days, Marcus snarled at me. "You've got 30 days and then I'm coming back and we'll see who this house really belongs to." "Looking forward to it," I said. He shouldered past the deputies, climbed into his truck, and peeled out of the driveway with a squeal of tires and a cloud of exhaust. We all stood in silence until the sound of his engine faded. "Mrs. Bennett," Deputy Martinez said gently, "are you safe here? Do you have family you can stay with?" I don't know. I need to think." "Mom." I stepped onto the porch, carefully maintaining distance. "You can stay. This is your house. You're not being evicted. But we need to talk about some things. And I need to go through the house to document what's here." She nodded mutely, stepping aside to let us enter. The condition of the interior made my heart sink. In the 3 days since I'd last been here, it had somehow gotten worse. Empty beer bottles covered every surface. Ashtrays overflowed with cigarette butts. The kitchen was a disaster zone of dirty dishes and takeout containers. Morrison pulled out his tablet and started photographing everything. Deputy Martinez and Chen walked through each room, noting damage, deterioration, destruction. In what used to be my father's study, Marcus's office, we found the mother lode. Filing cabinet unlocked. Computer password taped to the monitor. Financial records scattered across the desk like Marcus had been reviewing them recently. "Don't touch anything," Morrison said. "Chen, can you witness while I photograph these documents in situ?" "Yes, sir." What we found was worse than I'd imagined. The home equity loan, I'd seen records of forged signature. Mom's handwriting didn't match the application by a mile. A second mortgage taken out in 2021, also forged. Credit cards in Mom's name she didn't know about. 7 of them all maxed out. And the spreadsheet. Marcus's detailed inventory of everything in the house worth selling with dates, sold prices received, and buyers noted. Dad's Purple Heart. Sold 3/15/22, 50D. Mike's pawn grandmother's pearl necklace. Sold 6/3/22, $1.200. Estate buyer's tool chest handmade. Sold 8/10/22, $300. Garage sale. The list went on for 3 pages. Hundreds of items. Tens of thousands of dollars, all gambled away or spent on Marcus's lifestyle. "This is enough," Morrison said quietly, photographing the last page. "This is more than enough for fraud charges, criminal charges." "What about the house?" I asked. "Can we prove he tried to steal it? Look at this." He pointed to a document dated 6 months ago. He contacted a real estate agent about selling, got a market valuation of $380,000. He was planning to forge your mother's signature on the sales contract. "Oh my God," Mom's voice from his doorway. We hadn't heard her approach. She stared at the evidence spread across the desk. "He was going to sell our house." "Yes, Mom, and leave you with nothing." She sank into a chair, years of denial finally cracking. I knew he had problems, the drinking, the gambling, but I thought he loved me. I thought I could help him change. I knelt beside her chair. Mom, people like Marcus don't change. They just find new victims. You weren't helping him. You were enabling him while he destroyed everything Dad built. Your father warned me, she whispered. After his affair with Katie when we were in counseling, he said I had to learn to be okay alone, that I was too afraid of being by myself. He said that fear would make me vulnerable. She looked up at me with devastated eyes. He was right. Dad had an affair. This was news to me. Emotional, not physical. At least that's what the counselor determined. He got too close to Katie Rodriguez, started confiding in her instead of me. We almost divorced. She wiped her eyes. But we worked through it. He came home really home. The last 5 years before he deployed were the best of our marriage. I didn't know. You were a teenager. We didn't want to burden you. She laughed bitterly. But James knew me better than I knew myself. He knew I'd be terrified when he was gone. Knew I'd latch onto the first man who made me feel safe. Morrison cleared his throat. Mrs. Bennett, I need to ask you some questions. Your answers will determine what happens next. Mom straightened in the chair, wiping her face. Okay. Did you sign these loan applications? No. Did you authorize Marcus to sign them on your behalf? He said he needed my signature for some paperwork. I may have signed blank forms, I don't remember. Did you know he was selling your belongings? I knew about some garage sales. He said we needed money for repairs. I didn't ask questions. Did you know he contacted a real estate agent about selling the house? No, absolutely not. Morrison made notes. Mrs. Bennett, you're a victim of financial abuse and fraud. The question is, do you want to press charges? Mom looked at me, then at the spreadsheet of stolen items, then at the forged documents. Will Sarah get the house back if I press charges? Yes, and Marcus will likely go to prison. She took a shaky breath. Then yes, I'll press charges. I should have protected Sarah better. I should have protected this house better. I should have protected myself. She met my eyes. But I can start now. Can't I? I took her hand. Yes, Mom, you can start now. While Morrison worked with Mom on her statement, I excused myself to the basement. I needed air, space, a moment to process that my father had had an affair, that my parents' marriage had been more complicated than I'd known, that the pedestal I'd put Dad on was maybe a few inches too high. The basement was Marcus's dumping ground, boxes of junk broken appliances, cases of empty beer bottles. But in the corner behind a moldy couch, something caught my eye. The measurements were wrong. The wall didn't match the foundation dimensions from the blueprints I'd studied. I pulled out my phone, turned on the flashlight, and examined the drywall carefully. There barely visible a seam that had been poorly mudded and painted. A section that didn't quite match the rest. I knocked. Hollow. My heart started pounding. I found a screwdriver in Dad's workbench, the one thing too heavy for Marcus to move, and carefully pried away the drywall. Behind it, a door. Lockless, hidden, perfectly concealed. Inside the small room, maybe 6 feet by 8 feet, I found a military footlocker with Dad's name stenciled on top. And sitting on top of the footlocker, a video cassette in a plastic case labeled in Dad's handwriting, "For Sarah, play this when you fight for the house." My hands shook as I carried both items upstairs. Morrison, I called, you need to see this. 20 minutes later, we had the VCR from the living room hooked up. Thank God Mom never threw anything away. Mom, Morrison, both deputies, and I gathered around the TV. I pressed play. The image flickered, then stabilized. My father appeared on screen, younger than I remembered, in his army uniform. Behind him, I recognized the basement of this very house. Hey, Bear! My breath caught. I hadn't heard his voice in 11 years. If you're watching this, I didn't make it home. First, I'm sorry. Sorry I won't walk you down the aisle, meet your kids grow old, annoying you with dad jokes. Despite everything, I smiled through tears. Second, about your mom and me. You'll hear rumors. Maybe Katie Rodriguez will tell you. Maybe someone else. The truth is, I was an idiot who got too close to a colleague when your mom and I were struggling. Nothing physical happened, but I crossed lines I shouldn't have crossed. Katie helped me see that. Helped me come home to your mom and fix what I'd broken. On the couch beside me, Mom made a small sound. Your mom forgave me. We did the work. The last years were the best of our marriage. Don't judge her for that forgiveness, Sarah. Judge me for needing it." Dad leaned forward, his expression serious. "Third, the house. I know your mom. I love her, but I know her. She's terrified of being alone. After I'm gone, she'll be vulnerable. Con artists target military widows. It's a thing. Disgusting, but true." "Oh, James," Mom whispered. "I've set up protections. Morrison has all the documents. But Sarah, you'll need to be the strong one. You'll need to enforce those protections, even if it means going against your mom, even if it makes you the bad guy." He pulled out a document, held it up to the camera. This is my insurance policy. The Foot Locker has my actual medals. I had duplicates made of some so your mom could keep them safe without worrying about loss or theft. But these are the real ones. There's also $15,000 in cash marked for legal fees if you need to fight for this house." I opened the Foot Locker. Sure enough, medals in their original cases and 15 bank-wrapped stacks of $100 bills. On screen, Dad continued, "There's also my journal from deployment. It explains everything about my marriage to your mom, the mistakes I made, how we fixed them. I want you to understand that love isn't perfect, Sarah. It's messy. People make mistakes. What matters is whether they do the work to fix them." He set down the document and looked directly at the camera, directly at me across 11 years. "Sarah, you're going to be stronger than you know, smarter than me, tougher when you need to be. When the time comes, and it will come, don't hesitate. Protect your mom, protect our home, and know that even though I'm gone, I'm still fighting for you. I'm still building walls around what matters." His expression softened. "Stay tough, soldier. I love you forever, Dad." The screen went black. The room was silent except for Mom's quiet crying. I rewound it, played it again, and again, hearing his voice, seeing his face, understanding finally that he'd known. He'd prepared for this exact scenario, built a fortress around us made of legal clauses and hidden rooms and unconditional love. "He knew," Mom said through tears. "He knew exactly what would happen to me, and he protected us anyway." "Both of us," I corrected, taking her hand. Morrison wiped his own eyes. "I helped James set this up. He spent 6 months planning it before his last deployment. Made me promise not to tell either of you unless it became absolutely necessary." He gestured at the TV. This was his contingency plan, his way of fighting for his family even after he was gone. Deputy Martinez cleared his throat. "Ma'am, we should probably head out, but your father sounds like he was a hell of a man." "He was," I said. "He really was." After the deputies left, the three of us sat in the living room, Mom, Morrison, and me, surrounded by evidence of Marcus's crimes and my father's protection. "What happens now?" Mom asked. Morrison pulled out his legal pad. "Now we build the case. Criminal charges against Marcus for fraud, forgery, theft, assault. Civil suit to recover the value of stolen property. And we file to have Sarah recognized as the rightful owner of the house with life estate rights for you, Margaret. Will Marcus go to prison? If the DA pursues this aggressively, 5 to 7 years minimum." Mom nodded slowly. "Good. That's good." She looked at me. "I'm sorry, Sarah, for all of it. For choosing him, for letting him hurt you, for being so weak. You're not weak, Mom. You were lonely and scared, and a predator exploited that. But you're making the right choice now. That takes strength. Your father would be so disappointed in me." "No," I said firmly. "He'd be disappointed in himself for not being here to protect you. But he'd be proud of you for finding your strength now." We sat in silence for a moment. Then Morrison stood. "Ladies, I need to start drafting these complaints. Sarah, can you stay with your mother tonight? I don't think she should be alone." "I'll stay." After Morrison left, Mom and I ordered pizza, the first meal we'd shared in 3 years that wasn't overshadowed by Marcus's presence. We talked about Dad, about the marriage I'd never fully understood, about the man who'd made mistakes, but had loved us enough to build walls around us before he died. "Tell me about Katie Rodriguez," I said. Mom took a deep breath. She was his communications sergeant. Smart, capable kind. James started talking to her about problems we were having, things he should have been talking to me about. They got close. Too close. But Katie was the one who stopped it. Told James he needed to come home and fix his marriage or let me go. But what he was doing wasn't fair to anyone. She sounds like a good person. She is. After James died, she came to the funeral. Tried to talk to me, but I was so angry. I blamed her for the rough patch we'd had, even though I knew the fault was mostly James's. She tried to give me something said James had asked her to keep it safe, but I told her to leave. The videotape? Maybe. I never asked. I was too proud. She wiped her eyes. I've made so many mistakes, Sarah. We all have. But tomorrow we start fixing them. That night I slept in my parents' bedroom. Mom said she'd take the couch. As I lay in the bed where my parents had fought and reconciled and built a marriage that survived infidelity and war, I thought about legacy. Marcus had tried to erase my father's legacy, one sold item at a time. But Dad's real legacy wasn't medals or tools or a house. It was the foresight to protect the people he loved, the humility to acknowledge his mistakes, and the determination to build something that would outlast him. Tomorrow we'd start the legal battle. We'd dismantle Marcus Shaw piece by piece. We'd reclaim everything he'd stolen and rebuild everything he'd destroyed. But tonight I just listened to my father's voice one more time on the videotape. Stay tough, soldier. I will, Dad, I whispered into the darkness. I promise. Monday morning brought Marcus's response delivered not through proper legal channels, but through his brother Dean, who showed up at the house at 7 a.m. banging on the door. Open up, we're getting Marcus's stuff. I was already awake, coffee in hand, watching through the new security cameras Morrison had installed over the weekend. Dean wasn't alone. 2 other men I didn't recognize flanked him, all 3 looking like they'd come ready for confrontation. I called 911 first, then Morrison. Stay inside, Morrison instructed. Don't engage. The restraining order covers his proxies too. Through the window I watched Dean try the doorknob, then circle the house testing windows. The 2 men with him were more aggressive, one actually attempting to pry open the garage door. This is Sarah Bennett at 1247 Maple Street, I told the dispatcher calmly. 3 men are attempting to break into my property. I have a restraining order against one of their relatives, Marcus Shaw, and I believe they're acting on his behalf. Police arrived in 4 minutes. Dean tried to argue, we're just getting my brother's belongings, but the officers weren't interested in his justifications. Sir, there's a court order. Any personal items will be returned through proper legal channels. Right now you're trespassing. Dean was arrested. His 2 friends scattered before they could be identified. I recorded the whole thing from my phone, watching through the window as Dean was cuffed and placed in the back of a patrol car. Sent the footage directly to Morrison with a timestamp. He's getting desperate, Morrison said when he arrived an hour later. Men like Marcus don't take losing well. We need to accelerate our timeline. How? The district attorney is a friend. I'm calling in a favor. We get Marcus charged this week, not next month. The longer he's out there free and furious, the more dangerous he becomes. 2 weeks later, we stood in Judge Brennan's courtroom for the preliminary hearing. Marcus had hired Bradley Simmons, a local attorney known for aggressive tactics and loose ethics. Marcus sat at the defense table in an ill-fitting suit, his face red and sweating. He kept glaring at me, at Mom, at Morrison, as if intimidation could undo what was coming. The prosecutor assistant DA, Rachel Kim, was methodical and merciless. She presented the evidence piece by piece, the forged loan documents, the spreadsheet of stolen items, the gambling debts, the assault photographs, my medical records. Your Honor, she concluded, Marcus Shaw systematically defrauded Margaret Bennett over a 3-year period, stealing approximately $89,000 in cash and assets. He forged her signature on multiple legal documents. He attempted to illegally transfer property he didn't own. And when Ms. Sarah Bennett threatened to expose these crimes, he assaulted her. Simmons tried his best. Your Honor, Mr. Shaw was in a committed relationship with Mrs. Bennett. Many of these transactions were discussed between spouses. This is a family dispute, not a criminal matter. Mr. Simmons, Judge Brennan's voice was ice. Are you suggesting that marriage gives someone the right to forge signatures and steal property? I'm suggesting that the lines are blurred in a marital relationship. They're not blurred, they're clear. Marriage isn't consent to fraud. She turned to Marcus. Mr. Shaw, stand up. He did, reluctantly. You've been charged with 12 counts of forgery, 7 counts of grand theft, 1 count of attempted fraud, and 1 count of assault and battery. How do you plead? Not guilty, Your Honor. Bail is set at $50,000. You're to have no contact with Sarah Bennett, Margaret Bennett, or the property at 1247 Maple Street. Trial date is set for Your Honor, Simmons interrupted. My client can't afford that bail amount. Then he'll remain in custody until trial. She banged her gavel. Next case. I watched as they led Marcus away in handcuffs. He twisted back to look at Mom one last time. Maggie, tell them you knew about everything. But Mom looked away, and Marcus disappeared through the door to the holding cells. With Marcus in jail and the house secured, Mom and I began the real work, not legal but emotional. We hired Tom Hayes, a contractor who'd served with Dad in Iraq, to assess the damage and plan restoration. He walked through the house, shaking his head. Your father would be sick seeing this, Tom said, examining the cheap particle board where Dad's handcrafted built-ins used to be. James spent 6 months on those shelves, perfect joints, quarter-sawn oak. Marcus ripped them out and replaced them with this garbage. Can you rebuild them? I asked. Better question, will you let me? James saved my life in Fallujah. This is the least I can do. We accepted. Over the next 2 weeks, Tom and his crew worked while Mom and I sorted through what remained of our family's belongings. We found things Marcus had missed, photos stuffed in the back of closets. Dad's journals hidden under floorboards, small treasures overlooked because they had no resale value. One afternoon, while cleaning out the attic, Mom found a box labeled Sarah School Years. Inside were all my report cards, art projects, school photos, spelling bee ribbons. Everything Marcus had told her to throw away. I couldn't do it, she admitted. I told him I'd gotten rid of it all, but I hid it up here. Some part of me knew I might regret losing these. We sat on the attic floor, surrounded by my childhood, and cried together for the first time in years. I'm going to get counseling, Mom said suddenly. Real counseling. I need to understand why I let Marcus control me, why I prioritized his comfort over your safety. I think that's good, Mom. And I need to apologize, really apologize, not just for Marcus, but for before, for making you feel like you had to leave to be yourself. I took her hand. I left because I needed to grow, but I should have visited more, called more. I let my anger at Marcus become anger at you, too. You had every right to be angry. Maybe, but I could have been angry and present. I could have fought for you instead of just abandoning you to him. You came back when it mattered, she said. That's what counts. Word spread through the military community about what had happened, about Marcus's stolen valor, his theft of James's medals, his abuse of a fallen soldier's widow. The response was swift and overwhelming. Bernie Martinez, a Vietnam veteran who'd unknowingly bought Dad's combat knife from Marcus, showed up at the house with 3 other vets. We want to help, Bernie said simply. What do you need? I need to find everything Marcus sold, I said. The medals, the tools, the family heirlooms. Some of them have to still be out there. They organized a network, posted on military family Facebook groups, contacted pawn shops, spread the word through VFW halls across 3 counties. Within a week, items started coming back. Carlos Reyes returned a compass. Marcus said it was from his service in Desert Storm. I should have known better. It has your dad's initials inside. Mike Patterson returned a field jacket. The name tape inside says Bennett. I'm sorry I didn't check before buying it. Jennifer Wade returned a set of dog tags. Found these at an estate sale. The dealer said they came from Marcus Shaw's collection. I'm glad they're home. Each return was a small resurrection. Each item a piece of Dad coming back. The Purple Heart was still missing, sold to Mike's pawn for $50, according to Marcus's spreadsheet. When I called the owner, said he'd sold it to a collector in Cleveland. Tom Hayes drove 3 hours to Cleveland, found the collector, and bought it back for $2,000. James would have done the same for me, was all Tom said when he handed me the case. Marcus's trial lasted 3 days. The evidence was overwhelming. The jury deliberated for 90 minutes, guilty on all counts. At sentencing, Judge Brennan addressed Marcus directly. Mr. Shaw, you targeted a military widow. You stole from a family that had already given everything in service to this country. You sold a Purple Heart, a medal earned through blood and sacrifice, for beer money. And when you were confronted with your crimes, you responded with violence. Marcus sat stone-faced. 7 years in state prison. $89,000 is in restitution to Margaret Bennett and Sarah Bennett. And upon release, you're prohibited from contacting either woman for the remainder of your natural life. As they led him away, Marcus finally broke. This isn't fair. That house was supposed to be mine. Maggie promised, Mr. Shaw. The judge cut him off. Nothing was ever yours. You were a guest who stole from his hosts. Take him away. Mom didn't cry. She sat beside me, holding my hand, watching justice delivered. Outside the courthouse, reporters were waiting. Small-town news had picked up the story, Veteran's Daughter Fights Back Against Predator. I gave a brief statement. My father, Colonel James Bennett, served this country with honor. After his death, Marcus Shaw tried to erase his legacy piece by piece. Today, justice was served. But more importantly, my mother is free. The house my father built is safe. And our family can finally heal. Dead. 6 weeks after Marcus's sentencing, we held an open house at 1247 Maple Street. Tom had finished the restoration. The built-in bookshelves were perfect replicas of Dad's originals. The hardwood floors gleamed. The kitchen had been updated while honoring Dad's craftsmanship. And in the living room, a new memorial wall displayed Dad's recovered medals, his photos, and a brass plaque. Colonel James Bennett, U.S. Army, builder of this home, protector of this family. His love outlasted his life. 50 people came, veterans from Dad's unit, neighbors who'd known us for decades. Katie Rodriguez, who'd driven 4 hours from Pennsylvania. I'm so sorry I couldn't give you the video sooner, Katie told Mom. James asked me to hold it until you needed it. I tried after the funeral, but you were so angry. I understand, Mom interrupted. And I'm sorry for blaming you, for pushing you away. They hugged both, crying while I watched and thought about forgiveness and how complicated families really are. The surprise came at 3 p.m. when a young woman knocked on the door, 23, nervous, clutching a purse like a lifeline. I'm looking for Sarah Bennett. That's me. My name is Amanda Shaw. I'm Marcus's daughter, from his first marriage. The room went quiet. I'm not here to defend him, she said quickly. I cut contact 8 years ago after he bankrupted my mom. When I heard what he did to you, I wanted to say I'm sorry. And thank you. Thank you. Your lawsuit exposed everything. My mom's been trying to get restitution for years. Her lawyer is reopening her case now. Because of you, she might finally get justice too. Mom stepped forward. Would you like to stay for dinner? We have plenty. Amanda's eyes filled with tears. After what my father did to you. You're not your father, I said. Are you hungry? That evening, after everyone left, Mom and I sat on the porch swing Dad had installed 20 years ago. The same swing where he'd taught me constellations, where he'd told me about his plans to finish the basement, where he'd promised me that no matter where the Army sent him, this house would always be home. What happens now? Mom asked. You'll go back to New York. I'd been waiting for the right moment. Actually, I got a job offer. Midwest Regional Director. I could work from Columbus. Mom's head snapped up. You'd stay? Not in this house you need your independence, but nearby. Weekly dinners. Real family. I paused. If you want that. Sarah, I want nothing more. We swung gently, watching the sun set over Maple Street. Tom's nephew asked me to dinner next week, I admitted. And I said yes. Maybe it's time to build something new here. Your father would like that. She smiled. He always said you'd come home eventually, that Ohio was in your bones whether you wanted to admit it or not. He was right about a lot of things. He was. We sat in comfortable silence, the house glowing warm behind us. Inside, Dad's medals caught the last of the sunlight. His rebuilt bookshelves stood proud and solid. His foundation, literal and metaphorical, held strong. Marcus Shaw had tried to erase James Bennett's legacy. Instead, he'd reminded us exactly what that legacy was: protection, preparation, unconditional love, and the unshakable belief that family, real family, could survive anything. The house on Maple Street stood proud, restored, protected, home, and for the first time in 11 years, I was exactly where I belonged. The end.